It's Joe and Abbey.
Do I even need to say anything?
I'm taking over this conversation. So, you guys ready for this topic? We're going to talk about. All right, how do I describe what we're going to talk about?
I think it's the best way to describe it is we are always under influence by negative energies and all types. And we're just going to talk about how the best way to overcome and stay above that energy is, because all of us, every single person is struggling with this. No matter how you could say how much you have your head in the clouds or not, everyone is struggling right now with something around this topic. And I think it's very important to talk about how the best to rise above it. Like, depression rates in this world are going through the roof because of this type of energy. People are getting lost.
Yeah, so we're wanting to discuss what we've seen between the energy world and the human world, and the influence of the energy world on the human being, between leadership. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet, because this is impacting every single individual person. And obviously, the more influence that you have, if you're influenced by something in the energy world that's influencing you in a way where you're losing your humanity. So are you really yourself, or are you the something that's influencing you? And if you are the something that's influencing you, how can you make this a better world? You're going to be manipulated into thinking that you're making it a better world based upon something that's not even coming from inside yourself.
They're not coming from your heart or not.
Yes.
It's like, you could say that a lot of the leaders of the world are not even themselves for the decisions that they're making, because if they were the true highest versions of themselves, they would never make decisions that enslaves people.
You can tell a good leader because you admire them. You want to, you actually look up to them and say, wow, that's an excellent example of a human being, because they're a really good listener. They're working with a grounded sense of self. They have good ideas that are actually going to better people. It's like the ripple in the pond. How do you want to influence the world? What ripples are you making in the pond? Are you making them from the place of virtue? And virtue is a place of love, right? And love isn't, we're talking about kind of like this Holy Spirit level, this beautiful love, right? That we all want to just experience is the only thing that's real. But part of being human is sometimes painful love. But how are you overriding the pain in order to still make decisions that better everybody's life instead of just bettering yourself? And then the ripples in the pond are actually hurting others. And still you live in the illusion of heaven, while other people are actually living in an experience of hell based on the way you're rippling the pond.
A perfect example of that is someone that has a lot of wealth, that lives their life in lap of luxury all the time, and can never truly understand what people are going through in the real world. Yeah. And not only that, thinking that it doesn't matter what they're going through in the real world. It only matters what I have in this world. And so it's like, so when you live your life, it's not simply how you live it, it's how it affects other people that's important. So if you're in a position of leadership and you choose to benefit yourself with the suffering of others, that's not leader. Like she said, you're not a leader at all. What you're doing is destroying everyone else's lives just to benefit yourself. And that is that person influenced by negative energy? Is it their fault? What is actually happening there? Because we do a lot of research ourselves into why, for instance, people are making those decisions. Why are the prime ministers, why are the presidents of the world making these decisions that don't make any sense? What is influencing them? And we do a lot of research into that. And we come up with where a lot of the times these people aren't even truly themselves anymore. They're being influenced to the point where their part of their soul, the heart part of their soul, the empathetic part of their soul is actually removed and replaced by something else which feeds off them. Which feeds off that energy in order to grow and become more physical in this world. And the more physical it becomes in this world, the more influence it has over everyone else. So how do you stop yourself from being influenced? Like, how many every day of your life you're faced with a decision? Every day, no matter what. Simply just getting out of the bed is a decision. Simply going to work is a decision. There's so many decisions in our lives, but how many times do you base a decision on how it affects everyone around you? Is going to benefit me? Am I going to, if I take this, for instance, if you have to make a decision about doing something that is going to benefit you a lot, but is going to make other people suffer, is that the right way of doing things? Or should you simply say no to that because it affects other people? And you might suffer making that decision because there could be consequences to it. And now that consequences you have to live with. But if you just simply would have just did what you were told to do, or what the decision that was said, it doesn't matter how it affected everyone else. You would be in a much better situation. But really, truly, would you be?
Yeah.
Because we only live here for a very small fraction of our existence. And to think in a way of just being here on this world right now in a short term, if you think that everything that you do here is like, whatever happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas, it doesn't work that way. Because that everything you do has an effect. It ripples through everyone else. Yeah. And there is consequences to that.
We were talking actually about, okay, boy, there's so many deep things in this conversation. Before I mention this, I did want to say one thing about, about influences from the other side and some of the things in our research, because we do energetically look at things and try to make sense of what creates harmony and balance in our world, and what is influencing our world, and what do we even do about it? What can Joe and I even do about it? We're not sure. That's what part of this conversation is about. What can we do about it as individual people? What could you guys do about it? And so we want to look and investigate that. And I mean, I've seen things as odd as gates of hell are open, and any kind of weird things are trying to get through a dimensional veil from one space into our space. And how they are accomplishing it is they are manipulating, they are influencing what is weird, absurd ideas. And it's like trying to, if we don't stand together with a similar strong stance in what we believe creates good human beings, builds a good society, empowers people, if we don't stand in oneness with that and we become individuals who are thinking all over the place, we're scattered energetically, we're scattered emotionally, we're scattered mentally, we're scattered physically. That is coming from an influence that wants us to be scattered. And then when you don't know what to do, or you're influenced because you're just weak in yourself, or you just don't know how to stand strong in yourself because there's too much that you're up against and it's going to be crippling, these energies will come in, and it's like they want to shut down your roots so you can't be strong in yourself. They want to shut down your sacral chakra so you don't know how to love yourself, how you feel loved by others. You don't even know what your sexual identity is anymore. Like, they want to shut down what's sacred about you. What is the root of who you are? Your emotions. They want to numb you. They want to shut down the heart of who you are. They want to shut down your voice so that you don't have ability to speak up for yourself anymore. They want to take it right on down to just your ego, your mind. They don't even want you to have any higher ideas, because the ideas need to be channeled through them. And so there's these roots that are in people. And it's like I could go in and say, okay, this is my brother and sister here that's being influenced by something outside. It's alien, it's foreign, it's hellish, it's freaky, it's weird, okay? I have the ability to remind from the spirit realm, from another dimension, I have the ability to remind these leaders or these people who they are. Because we cannot forget who we are, as the essence of who we are is the spirit and the love of who we are. We can't forget that. And so we're there for each other, right? So I'm going to a leader and I'm saying, my gosh, you've lost yourself along the way. Here is a representation of Jesus and Mother Mary and unconditional love and forgiveness. Like, everything's forgiven. Come back to us. Come back to humanity. And parts of them are completely asleep. And the only part that's awake is under the influence of insatiable pleasure. It's insatiable pleasure, like jammed right up there in their sacral chakra, making them think that they're living their high life, when they're completely manipulated and lost and gone. And you have to bring them back to love. And love is not easy. Love is making the hard decision, but being able to live with yourself. And when you're surrounded by a bunch of people that can't make the hard decision and can still live with themselves because they're on a dopamine from some influence that is causing them to lose their humanity, put all that stuff to sleep, and then just go live the high life while you're still alive and then screw everybody else over. But hey, I'm with my buddies. Hey, we've got, 100 people here. We're doing the same thing. High five. Hell, we'll screw them over. Screw them. We'll have some fun. But you're going to wake up on the other side. And this is kind of where Joe was leading to. We were talking about how when you pass over, you could say from source, all is forgiven, right? You can do whatever you want. You really can do whatever you want. All is forgiven. But can you forgive yourself? The thing is, when you get to the other side and you get to see the ripples in the pond that you created that are cosmic, you'll get to see how you influence the whole universe, how you influence everybody, how you destroyed people's lives that you didn't even know because you made decisions that were so selfish and so deluded and not even coming from you, that you were manipulated from something that wasn't even yourself because you were insecure, because you were weak. Now you have to wake up in every single dimension of time and space to yourself. And can you forgive yourself? Can you live with yourself? So, Joseph?
Wow. Anyway.
It's a passionate conversation we're having here.
She's not passionate at all.
I know.
I'm trying to make it lighthearted. But that is a lot said. And I've probably had 20 things that popped in my head that just went through and in and out and back sideways and disappeared.
I want to hear them. Come back to those 20 things, Joe.
I don't even remember them. So I think it's such a complex conversation because to overcome this type of influence, and I think it's so important that we look at how we affect others. How can we come together? Like you could say, look at, say Afghanistan is a good example. You could say everybody in Afghanistan is a bunch of terrorists. Is that a true statement? No, it's not. Because majority of the people are just like us, just like you and me, that are lost with a tyrannical leadership that just is controlling every aspect of our life. And we're actually on the verge of possibly having the same thing happen in North America. It's because we have leaders that are basing their decisions on what they feel by influence on other things above them, and then things above them, and things above them, and things above them. When you start following it back to the roots, you start to realize that whenever you look at things based on enslavement, it's not coming from the heart. It's coming from a very dark place. And that is the problem with the world right now, is that our decisions are being made from an influence that we've awakened, especially since COVID. Yeah. And I'm not, when I say this, I mean it with 100% of my heart, that we awakened something. And that something is getting louder and louder and louder, and we need to stand up to it. And how you stand up to it is by making the good, hard decisions. And being a good person when everybody else around you is not, is extremely difficult to do. And you'll put yourself in situations that are very uncomfortable. But that's the only way that you're able to silence these sounds that influence you. And it starts off with a whisper. And then it's like, it's okay to do that. It's not a big deal. And then
you're telling yourself it's okay.
And then it's okay. And all of a sudden, you're screwing little kids, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to do that.
Yeah.
We all know it's wrong. We all know it's wrong for, I don't want to get into the details of how messed up the decision-making things are in this world, but there's a lot of things being influenced, and people are not able to silence those because they start to believe in their own illusions.
Yeah.
And these are being influenced by demonic beings, evil beings, you could say, dark energies that are doing it so they can become more physical, so they can feed their own twisted ideology of what they believe is right. But what they believe is right is enslavement of the human race, of the enslavement of everything that which is good. And that is what they live like. But for when we look at these things and we go in and heal them. Mm-hmm. We follow them back and try to close back. We find pieces of people there. Yeah. When you find your leaders of your countries, actually put in a state of, like, a part of their soul is actually trapped in a specific place, and these beings they're basically put in a dream state of whatever that is.
Yeah, fantasy or
fantasy
illusion.
world of illusions. Then you get pulled into that. And then you stay in that state, and they feed off it. In the meantime, they have more ability to now twist the minds of the people, that same people that are in that area. So that if they have the leader of a country in multiple different parts and their soul is fragmented, they're able to fill those fragments with their own ideology and their own ways of thinking and the manipulation. And now that person's more like a robot and actually being influenced, and they're not even themselves.
Right.
So is it truly their fault? You could say that it is, but it's not even the real person anymore. It's like literally they have been taken over by an entity.
Yeah.
And now they're not even that same person anymore. That's why we do energy work on some leaders of certain countries. And they are not the same people they were 3 years ago. They're totally different.
Yeah.
Their energy's different. Their minds are different. The way they think is different. And the way they act is different based on them allowing the energy to go in. You could simply say they allowed themselves to be taken over by a demon, you could say, or influenced by it.
Yeah.
And this is happening all over the world. And I remember doing a journey into COVID a long time ago, one of the goals of that specific thing is to exaggerate fears. And the more you are afraid, the more influence, and you will become a statue in the spirit realm. And now you're frozen, and that part of yourself is frozen. And now the other energies that are here, that are influenced COVID in the first place, are now whispering inside your mind louder and louder and louder, to the point where you don't even know anymore what is right and what is wrong. And your understanding of it is getting less and less and less and less and less prevalent. So it's pretty serious stuff we're talking about, because we could simply say there's been a war with good and evil in the physical realms for a very, very long time. You could say heaven and hell. That's a very, very, very simplistic way of putting it. But that is going on now, louder than it has ever been in a very long time. In past histories, you could say this has happened many, many, many times before, but the difference is now is that we all have cell phones, we all have internet, we all are interconnected. It's easier to be manipulated now more than any time in history.
Yeah.
When was the last time you just took when I look at cell phones, everybody has a cell phone, generally. But how much time do you spend on that cell phone? I've been finding sometimes it's best just to take the games, delete all your games. Only have a game that is not a game. For instance, if you're traveling, you could say, I'm just going to use Minecraft as an example, because Minecraft you can play without internet, not internet, you can play it anywhere else. It is not connected to anything. So you could simply just create your own little world, you could say. And then you could have games that you have to constantly go back to them all the time. I've actually been in that situation where people were spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a little cheap ass phone game. And it becomes so ridiculously important to them that they start putting ridiculous rules out, and then they're becoming their own little dictators themselves, running these little phone games, thinking that they're generals and thinking that they're better than everyone else, and forcing anybody that's in that game to be a specific way, or they're not going to be able to play that game anymore. It's a phone game.
It's life, Joe. Hello.
It's a phone game.
The phone is life.
That is more important than anything else in your life. So you have to set aside 4 or 5 hours a day, or you're going to be kicked off of this specific guild. Delete the fucking game. Delete it. You'll be better off without it.
Yeah.
Take some time and set your phone aside, that you force yourself to go hours without even picking it up.
What's the real pandemic here? I feel like there's a psychological pandemic. It's infecting our mental health. It's affecting our memory of what it means to just be a human being. Because at one time we didn't have phones, we didn't have video games. Like, People were outside taking walks in the park, sitting down on park benches, talking to one another, playing with their dogs outside. Kids were out playing all the time. Kids had their own life outside the house with their friends in their neighborhoods. And even beyond that, they would stroll through the woods and go down to the creek and fish. Like, kids used to do things without their parents that were like building a relationship with reality. What is reality? What is our relationship with reality? Because is reality fishing? Is it gardening? Is it walking? Is it playing outside? Is it, or is it sitting on the couch, part of the electronic world, plugged in, and then interacting with people through brief thoughts, texts, ideas? We are trying. I feel like the human race is trying to create an experience where we have access to one another in all parts of the world, which is beautiful. But what are we doing to make it beautiful? What are we doing to use this to our advantage instead of to our disadvantage? And how is it encouraged to become a disadvantage? It's almost like the influence and the encouragement is here. Have TikTok, have a bunch of absurd videos, and we're going to encourage the absurd videos and the algorithm to get the most visibility so that you're going to be influenced to want to make absurd videos too, so that the whole human race becomes just stupid, absurd people making 3-minute absurd videos that go viral so that you think that you become something in this world. Like, what did you really give back? What did you really ripple through the pond right there? That you just gave into something. Did you want to say something?
I got to say something about TikTok. For all you idiots out there.
Hey, Joseph won.
Idiots. For all you idiots out there that blatantly put lies that are untrue, and you know they're untrue, shut the fuck up. Because you're part of the problem. And there's so many distinct people out there that are simply just out there to get clicks and don't give a shit they're putting out false information. Yeah. Knowingly. If you do it accidentally, I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about the ones that are doing it purposely just to get clicks. That's all I want to say.
And give us some examples, because Joe has, this is fascinating to me. Like, he has told me about some of the ideas that are being presented. Like, there's this Tartarian society or something.
Well, we don't know if that's true or not. That's the whole point. Or I'm not going to get into the history of everything that's been putting forward. What I'm talking about is just simple facts. Like, you could say that somebody's such and such is this person, or that person is this tall or that tall. That's very simple, but blatant lies. Like, that person's not that tall. I mean, or putting pictures in that this is what this looked like, and now it looks like this, and it's not even the same fucking picture. Like, that's another example. But then you get ones that are much, much, much more severe, like actually taking pieces of an actual conversation.
Oh, yes.
And put it together so it's completely false.
So it creates the illusion that they said it like this.
Yes, and it wasn't
when you
like
miss
that.
the actual point of the conversation.
No, they actually delete parts of the conversation, so it makes it so the person says this, but when you listen to the full conversation, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Like,
that is true, and there is a lot of that.
But when you're doing this stuff, like, especially there's a lot of spiritual people out there who will tell you exactly what you want to hear. Yeah. Instead of what is being told to you.
I know.
Because when you do spiritual work, and this is one of the things I want to talk about, is you're told all kinds of stuff. Who am I truly? What is my goals in life? What does my future look like? You're told specific things in a specific way. Should you take that 100% for the truth? No. Because the spirit realm responds to your egotistical mind and your egotistical heart, if you want to call it that. Your heart is more liable to tell you the truth than your mind is, though. Mm-hmm. But they both can be manipulative. Because unless you really truly look at the full message, you got to allow the message to be exactly what it's meant to be without thinking that everything that's shown to you is 100% accurate. Because when they show it to you, there's truth into it. But it's metaphorical a lot of the times. They tell you things specifically to see if you will run with it, to see if your ego, you could say they could test you. And there's lots of people will do, and this is how the dark energies want to influence your mind, and this is what I'm running into it. They influence your mind by showing you things in a journey state that is absolutely unreal. It's beautiful. But you know inside yourself, if you're truly open to that, and that takes practice to know what is negative in energy that's disguising itself. You have to be completely open to the possibility of all beings. However, you have to be open to your higher self and to your own self to know you already know what is right and wrong. You feel it inside yourself. You have to be open to that, not just by the imagery of it. There's so many times I come across, I'll say I want to talk to Jesus Christ, and another being comes with a bunch. I can see the layers. They come to me with all these layers. I'm like, you're not. Go away. And they send them away. And they have to leave. If you believe and you know inside yourself, they have to command. They might not, but that's because you don't believe in yourself. And that's a whole nother topic. Because belief in who you are is extremely important. The power of you, the things that happen inside yourself, you have the ability to command anything to leave if you don't want it there. But I'm getting off topic, but the influence that happens through journeys can mess people up, can get people in a delusional state. And when they start believing in a lie, that lie, because I'm saying a lie because they told you information that isn't necessarily true.
So, for example, let's say they present, you're doing a journey into, I don't know, what 2023 is going to look like for you. So your idea of what is being presented is exactly what's going to happen. You're not actually taking the time to be open-minded to this is simply an idea of what I could explore or experience in 2023 based upon what time I'm in right now, based upon what I'm going through right now, and what that could potentially look like in 2023. So you have to keep an open mind that what they're sharing is simply a presentation of information, and then you do what you want with that.
Yes.
But energetically, I mean, you can really feel, if you take the time to be patient, you can feel beneath the surface, beneath the surface, beneath the surface, beneath the surface, beneath the surface. There'll always be another beneath the surface. There'll always be something bigger than you could imagine it ever getting bigger than bigger and bigger and bigger. How could it keep getting bigger? Like, how could it keep getting smaller forever? Like, how is that even possible? So beneath the surface of what you're shown and what is being presented is just another meaning. And so there's not just one meaning. There is so many meanings. But one thing that you could say, there are root meanings. And root meanings are what creates a whole human being.
Yeah.
What creates a human being who feels whole on the inside. And if we can find out what does that, isn't that what we should be putting our energy into? And not just for one country, but these ideas should be shared with all countries and say, this is what we have found is what creates strong human beings in our country. Maybe this can work for you guys. This is what creates wholeness mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And this is just simply what we're working with. Maybe this will help you, because strong human beings create strong parents, strong societies. Children that grow up in these strong, whole societies become enlightened and extraordinary beings. And this is what betters humanity. So what's holding us back from being free to have these types of exchanges with one another? It's like, what is the influence of what can we do about it, you know?
Well, one of the other things is, like, another example would be, you ask, who am I truly? They'll tell you that you're this.
Okay, what? Tell you that you're Jesus?
God, you could be saying that well, they don't ever told. They
we
never
are all
told me.
Jesus. We
I
are
know,
all Mother
but they
Mary.
never told me specifically that it was Jesus. But some people actually might get that.
Right.
But they could say that you're like you're part this. So some people actually even say that. They actually do tell people that they are specific gods.
Yes.
So the question I have for you is that, are you a god right now? So if they say that you're the seventh soul created to create the universe, this is what is being said to you. What is that? How does that change you right now? It might get you to understand that your soul is way vaster than you could ever imagine. But you're in a physical reality, in a meat suit like we have right now. What does that actually do for you? Absolute jack shit. It just simply tells you that your soul is extremely vast, but right now you're stuck. As myself, for instance, I'm stuck as Joseph. This is who I am. Is my soul way vaster? Of course it is. Is it way older than you could ever imagine? Yes. Almost every soul is older and more vast than you could ever imagine.
Yes.
And don't get lost in the belief that you're a god.
Yeah.
because you're not a God right now. So that happens to a lot of people.
Yes, it does.
They get lost into this fantasy that they're this. Well, you're not that. You're not the reincarnation of such and such and such. Because that reincarnation, you're not when you get reincarnated, Joseph is always going to be Joseph. You're not going to come back as Joseph. You're going to be back as a different aspect of your higher self. Mm-hmm. So you're going to come back as something else. So you can look at Jesus. Would Jesus come back as Jesus? Or would he come back as something else? Because to come into this physical world is not easy.
Yeah.
You have to be born into it. Or you have to open a gateway and pull something into it. So there is multiple ways that you can bring souls in, but that soul doesn't have a physical incarnation, so they will have to use a meat suit in order for it to work properly. You can't. And I could say that people say, well, that's sacrilege. Jesus is going to come back as Jesus. I don't believe so. I believe Jesus would have to be reborn again.
Mm-hmm. You go through the difficult process of self-discovery.
Just like everyone else. So who is Jesus? Any of us could be Jesus.
Right.
What happens if you lived your whole life not knowing that you were Jesus all along until God wanted you to believe that you were? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden the veil's lifted and then,
But the problem is with the sudden discovery of your true self, you're incapable of digesting it. I'll be honest with you, because I remember in 2016, I was presented, and I didn't care about, I was like in awe of the idea of an old soul versus a young soul, and I felt like I could relate to who would be a young soul as people who are very influenced or superficial. They're very hard for me to tolerate being around, because I find myself interacting with a flat sheet of paper versus a dimensional cube or some tesseract type personality. Like I just find myself not inspired. So there's just not a lot there, okay? But then somebody who's an old soul, they could be very intelligent and be a lot there, but they'd still be they could still make young soul kind of decisions. Like they're easily influenced, easy manipulated. They're not really working from their core of their soul spirit. Mm-hmm. Anyway, but I remember being introduced to the age of my soul, and I hated knowing that, because I feel like it influenced my ego in a way that I really saw how truly profound I am, okay? And I didn't want to, I saw how truly profound that I was in a way that it took me several months to cope with that, because I don't want to be better than anybody. That messes with your ego. And some people will take that and be like, well, that is me. I need to be raised up in a special chair and the whole world should bow to me because I am this great somebody, It's like, if you let yourself get lost in that message, you have lost yourself entirely. Yes. Because that message is there to challenge you to either your ego will be driven in the direction of that profound nature of you. But what have you done to actually be that in this lifetime? What have you said? What have you done? What do you represent? Because I know that in other lifetimes, I could instantly touch somebody and I could rearrange their entire energetic design so that they were breathing and they were bright and they were whole again like that. I don't know how to conceive. I can't achieve that. Mm-hmm. I know that I've lived lifetimes that were magical. I know I've lived lifetimes where I can move things with my mind. I know I've lived lifetimes and I can't achieve that in this lifetime. And so that doesn't dilute the value of my soul or the age of my soul, or say that I'm not wise enough or whatever. It's just I am a real person. Yeah. I'm just a regular old human being working through this life like anybody else who has to work through this life. And even the greats come back here and they start from square one and have to find themselves again. Mm-hmm. So it is that way.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy to get lost into the belief system. And that is one of the way that dark energies influences your mind. They will take that. If you run with it, then all of a sudden you're thinking you're the second coming of Christ, and you're not. Even if you're told that you were Jesus. Say, for instance, you're told that you're Jesus. Okay, great. What is that going to change my life? And do I have powers? Can I raise people from the dead? Can I heal people? Can I walk on water? Does any of this stuff happen? No. If it did, then it'd be like, oh, wait a second here. Maybe this is true.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, where does that leave you?
Right.
In a mental institution. Possibly.
Yeah.
You're mentally insane. So the reality is that there's an actual reality check here.
Mm-hmm.
What does that information do to your physical form and what you can do in this lifetime right now? That is essential that you do that. If they tell you that you're Jesus, do I have the powers that Jesus was supposedly had?
Yeah.
If you don't, then what are you going to do about it?
Right.
You're not going to, by saying you're Jesus, there's going to be a negative influx about that because you can't do any of the things that he could do. It doesn't mean that you're not, though. It means that you have to live and earn that understanding and that belief. When they say, for instance, they told me that I was God created 7 souls to help create the universe, and I was number 7. That's what I was told many times. Okay, whatever. You let it go. It doesn't change who I am right now.
Right.
What it does do is challenge your ego to overcome the idea that you're special. Because I don't believe I'm special. I believe everyone is special.
Yes, exactly.
And that is a challenge that you have to overcome. Because as soon as you believe that you're special and above everyone else, the dark energies have a place to influence your mind.
Yeah.
Twist your way of thinking into the point where now you don't give a shit about anyone else.
Right.
And you're the only one that matters.
And that everybody should also be worshiping you.
Yes.
Because, hello, you're the special one.
That's the other thing. There's not one soul of light that I've came across that's truly made of love that's ever asked me to go on my knees and worship them.
Right.
None. Not Jesus, not God, no, nobody. Right. So if you have an influence, somebody's telling you to go on your knees and worship them, it's not a loving God.
Right.
It's not a loving spirit. It is one of negative energy, because only negative energy, they feed off the energy that you give them.
Yes.
That is another sign that helps you overcome it. Filling yourself with beautiful light. Just visualize yourself. You're sitting at home. You visualize yourself sitting. If not, just visualize a bright light. If you can't even do that, just think it. And expand that light so it fills your whole house.
Yeah.
And hold it there. And that is you. That is your soul that's expanding in light. You do that every day, even once a week, once a month. Just do it as frequently as you can.
Right.
That's going to help you overcome the darkness within yourself. And you can visualize the dark energies inside yourself turning into light.
Yeah. But another side of the coin, because we have to continue to circulate. We have to continue to grow. And some people want only light is real, only love is real. That's it. And so you aren't realizing how dimensionally complex that you are, and how many lifetimes your soul lived in complete suffering, even lost in suffering, even in pain. Am I manipulated into thinking that my soul had lived difficult lifetimes? No, actually, part of our pain, part of what we are working through is associated with being human, is full of fear, is full of influence, is full of whatever we wanted to explore in certain lives. Could be war, it could be all kinds of different things. And so if I am only light, I feel I'm neglecting all that I am. And so I keep the door open all the time for whatever is the most essential energies for me to be exploring at this time. But I feel that for starters, anyone wanting to get their feet on the ground and experiencing something of a vast goodness that is true, that is wanting to let go of any kind of negative influence and see what's on the other side of it at this time. You work with visualization techniques, you work with affirmations. It's true that if you let's say you're having a really bad day, but your affirmation is, I'm happy and I'm having a great day. The more that you say it, the more you're going to attract your idea of happiness and a good day. The more you're going to attract that. But there's going to be times where that is going to be challenged, and you're not going to want to say it. I'm happy and I'm having a good day, because it's going to feel like a bad joke, you know? Well, I've been working on this and I'm still having bad days and I don't want to do this anymore. But don't give up on it. Keep focusing, but it's okay to also explore what the pain is. Because the pain is we have if we could see our emotional body, we could see, if our emotional body was a physical body, we would see it would have many wounds, it have many gashes, and it needs to speak to us. We need sometimes what attracts those bad experiences or difficult, challenging experiences is just our emotional pain speaking to us, so that we can access the pain and we can look at it and we can work on it. Is it a dark thing, or is it just it's just something that we need to learn from, we need to grow from? And so we become open to knowing that pain is also part of love. And that's authentic. That's just being authentic. But we're not just this world, this present day. We are so much. We are so deep. We're so vast. I mean, I've been to aspects, so many dimensions, and part of what creates hell is, let's say that there's something that you did that you don't want to admit it, or maybe it made you feel ashamed, or maybe you felt so defeated, or maybe you felt so hopeless, or maybe you just didn't like yourself, you know, and that actually is what weaves the fabric of your own personal hell space. And now if you want to go into that hell space where you feel hopeless or defeated or whatever, depressed or anxious, there's something you're not dealing with. There's something in your pain that you're not dealing with. So you can go into your own hell space and find a part of your soul there. But you can love yourself like the angels love you, like all the masters of the universe love you, like God loves you. You know, whatever your vision and your experience, your translation of love is in a form, let that form in. Let that form in, even break down the vulnerability, and you're weeping now and basking in the light of that love. And that love is just holding you and lifting you up in your great weakness, because you can't be strong when you're in a hell space. You're completely defeated. That's what created that. And you can't forgive yourself, or you can't breathe. You can't find your existence anymore. You can't find your purpose. You can't find yourself, whatever it might be. So you let love in to that pain, and you let yourself be weak in order into the love that can help nurture that pain, so you can resurrect out of it. That's just another way of being authentic, is being truly authentic, being truly honest is another way to override those negative influences. So.
Yeah, and not get lost into it. Like there's so many times you're not be afraid of your dark side, and I think that's we're taught to be afraid of anything that's dark. But 90% of the dark stuff that you're experiencing in your dreams and yourself is all inside yourself.
Yeah.
And unless, of course, you give into things in such a strong level, that's a whole nother topic. And it's like we kind of talked about it earlier. You will be shown things about yourself that you have to forgive yourself for.
Yeah.
And you just do. Because what is the point of keeping yourself trapped in a hell space of a lifetime that you lived 20,000 years ago, for instance? What is that going to resolve? Except that part of yourself that's been in suffering all those years you need to go and fill it with love and light. Get it to remember what it really truly is in order to bring it back to yourself. Being a vast being, you've lived every lifetime you could ever imagine. You're going to have to forgive yourself for doing horrific things, but you also did amazing things. So it's everything. We've lived pretty well every lifetime you could ever imagine. And this isn't something that is made up. It is something that is factual. And when you believe that, then your fear is reduced about the dark energies. And when you're not afraid of the dark energies, then you're not influenced by them at the same level as somebody else would be. One of the things you can't do either is, and I've talked about this in the past, about becoming angry with them, beating them up, throw them up against the wall. How dare you? Vengeance, anger is a negative energy, and it doesn't matter. It's still a form of fear. Anger is one of those things that is like, there's a fine line between anger and standing up for yourself and speaking the truth. Like you could actually be A debate's a good example. Who wins the debate? The person that loses their mind and starts screaming and yelling, or the person that holds their cool and actually puts them back in their place? Putting somebody in their place is not being angry. Speaking the truth is not being angry. Being confident in who you are is not angry. Confidence is a belief in who and what you are. And the more confident you are, the more you're going to be able to do things and get things done. And that is extremely important, that we stay confident in what we believe in, but also be open to the possibility that we're wrong.
Yeah.
And we need to change. So life isn't simply just black and white. It's like a mix of your whole lifetime. You're going to be challenged about something. You look at that challenge and you overcome that challenge, and you move on to the next challenge and the next challenge and the next challenge. Sometimes people will never get past the first challenge. Is that because they're weak? No. It's because that's all they're able to do in this lifetime, which is perfectly fine. To judge that person is wrong. And it's like, life is not easy. It's not simple. But the best way that we can overcome all darkness in this world, in the universe, is to work together.
Yeah. And that common goal has to be what creates whole people, what creates empowered people, what creates people that want it, that are empowered to empower others even, what creates where everybody feels like they have value in society.
Mm-hmm.
Because when that happens, we actually get to appreciate each other for their strongest suit, instead of being disappointed or annoyed or frustrated because they couldn't get it together in this lifetime, and now they're just dead weight of our society, and they're just some adult child we have to take care of now. It's society that creates these imbalances. We can create a really strong society, strong kids grow into strong adults, grow into, strong generations of human race. And anyway, these are my thoughts.
Yeah, but we're at 45 minutes. We better start getting these journeys done if we're going to do them. It's a very important conversation that has a lot of branches to it. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, being good to others as well as to yourself is extremely important. And that's probably one of the most important things that you can ever learn in this lifetime, is the importance of living your life the best way you can. And sorry, I got distracted by so many things. Anyway, so I'm going to go into...
You were going to look at the Seraphim angel and
a message about what they would say to the world about how to rise above negative energies and influences in this world. And it doesn't, like, Seraphim angels are they're different. And I don't know how to explain it. It's not so much power, it's like they're part of everything, and they're very confident in what they do, and they're very, 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 very strict in what they do.
Yeah.
But they're also, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just thinking, okay, if I'm asking the Seraphim angel right now, how to better word what it is that they are, and maybe go into the understanding of what it is that they could help the world understand how to overcome these influences.
Yeah, my question, Joe, if you want to throw this in there. Okay, so this is what my brain is visualizing. Okay, so, and this is what I struggle with too. So we all have a place in this world as an individual person through our life purpose and our life experiences. And so in our individual life, as we are able to reach other people around us, there is a way that we can be our most empowered self. But sometimes you look at the world today and you really notice the red flags. You really see that there is something happening here. And what can we do about that? Do we have any power to influence the bigger picture of our planet, or so I feel like there could be a sense of concern and feeling like we're too small to do anything about it, but then maybe I'm big enough to do something about it just by being a representation of that in my individual life. Is that enough?
My answer to that would simply be, do what you can influence now, every day of your life. Be the influence that you can do right now, and what you can do, not what you can't do. If you can't control the outcome, of something that's happening in the world, then don't. You can't do it. You're wasting your energy. But you can only influence things that you can influence, and that's it.
But also, in addition to that, which I really like your response, so when we do journeys to try to empower our leaders to remember where there's the spark of their light is coming from, and what really makes a powerful influence on people is just going to empower their own life and their well-being. I wonder what the Seraphim angel would have to say about how much impact I can create. Either they will hear the sound of my discussion, or they will not. They will reject it. They will choose for themselves. They have their own guides and Seraphim angels and blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't matter anyway. Does it matter? Can I help people at a distance? Can I pray for people and then it helps? So I think I'd like to hear more about that too.
Well, it's like he's giving me an example right now, is that somebody's screaming at the top of their lungs in your mind all the time, and then you're whispering something in their ear. Will they hear it? That's the first thing that comes to me on that question. And that's what it's like when you're trying to influence somebody that is not wanting to hear your message. They'll never hear it. True. Because they have to be willing to hear it. Just like when an angel speaks to you, can you listen? Are you able to listen? Can you hear it? They're all wanting to talk to us. How many of us can actually hear the message? Because you have to train yourself to hear that message. You have to be willing to hear it, and you have to be willing to hear what is being spoken, not as what you believe the answer is. I'm going to go into this journey now, and I'm seeing right off the bat, I'm in a storm, a really strong winter storm. Because winter is you can't see nothing. It's just pure white. Are you in a safe place if you're in a winter storm? It's white. It's bright, it's light. But is it safe? Probably one of the most unsafe places you could ever be in a storm. It's extremely dangerous when you're in a winter storm, not knowing where you're going. You can't see. It's cold. If you stop, you could be buried. Like, it is so many. This is what I'm getting from this. And so what do you do when you're in a winter storm? You try to find shelter. You try to do it, or you get out of it as soon as possible, because actively staying in a winter storm makes no sense. You want to go somewhere where there's shelter, where there's warmth, where you can actually ride the storm out. But then he takes me and throws me on a raft in the middle of the ocean. What do you do then? You're in the middle of a storm on a raft with nothing else except the waves and the ocean, the wind, the hail, the snow. What do you do in a winter storm then? Because it's pretty damn scary to be in the middle of an ocean in a winter storm where the water isn't frozen, it's freezing. You're going to die before the storm is out. You will die. You have no way of surviving it. You will die. They're basically saying you're on a raft in a winter storm in a hurricane force winds in the middle of the ocean with hail, snow, wind, and just a raft. You will die unless you have some way of getting out from getting wet. You will die. So what do you do in that situation? And then he shows me that you're in a field full of flowers and it's sunny. What do you do in this situation? What do you do when you're on he's telling me somebody walking across a bridge, and the bridge is being pulled apart. And you literally, it's continuing to be pulled apart, and your legs are being spread further and further apart, and there's spikes underneath you. What do you do in that situation? In every situation, you have to do what? Accept your fate. Otherwise, you're going to have shattering occurring when your death comes, for instance. If you accept your fate, every part of your soul will move on. But if you fight against your fate, you would be shattered. Now, this is a situation, especially he's talking about on ones that you will die. If you accept your fate and still fight, he's not saying not to fight and to live for as long as you can, because that's what you should do in every situation in life, is to do and try the best you can to survive. But when death comes, you have to accept it. The acceptance of everything that you've done in this lifetime is extremely important, so your soul doesn't shatter. It's when you don't accept your fate, don't accept all these negative things that's happened to you in your lifetime, there will be parts of your soul that will not be free. You will entrap yourself. So how do you accept your fate? The show is a monk meditating. He's floating above the ground, about 2 or 3 inches. He has a robe that covers the ground, so people around him will never know that he's levitating 2 inches above the ground. He might not even be aware of it himself. There's an army that appears at the front of his temple. He actually stands up. He opens the door. He doesn't even try to fight. Like hide, I guess is the better way. Fight is not the right word. He opens his door and he stands in front of the army with his temple in behind him. And he has no weapons. There is a sword that's stuck in the ground. Does he take the sword? He actually picks the sword up and he goes on one knee and places the sword in his hands, on both hands, and he puts it in front of him and he says nothing. One of the generals of the army walk forward, take the sword out of his hand, and he chops the head off the monk. This is what is being shown to me. You can look at this situation and say that it could be many different ways that he could have done it. But the monk did it, the one thing that he felt was the right thing to do at the time. He accepted his fate. There's another time where the monk loses his mind and kills 20 people in the army. Eventually, he is dismembered and dies a slow, painful death. His soul is enraged. It shatters. He goes on to kill every single one in his mind, in the spirit world. Every single one of these people, and haunts them for their whole entire life. The monk lost a part of his soul in this event. Was it worth it? It shows the monk soul becomes twisted, bent, never really being satisfied with until every last soul that attacks his temple dies. But that's not possible. He's dead. But he still will haunt, twist, manipulate. So now a part of his soul is lost in darkness and came to one thing that he was truly against when he was a monk meditating in his temple. He became the one thing, the thing that attacked his temple, that basically killed thousands and thousands, well, probably millions of people. It just is a story that is being shared with me right now. You can take that, the angel's basically saying you can take that any way you want. It's a very dumbed down version of why it's so important that you stay strong and truly. This is important. You have to be true to yourself. You have to accept your fate. Because if you do not accept the fate, and this is, when he says accept your fate, it's accept your situation right now. You have to accept it. Because if you don't accept it, all you're going to do is shatter your soul repeatedly, and you're never going to be happy. What happens to a soul that is trapped in a cell for its whole life? If you spend every waking moment digging at a concrete wall with your fingernails, knowing that you're never going to get to the other side, you bleed them down to the bone, you curse everything and everyone that's ever put you in this situation, and your soul just shatters to a million pieces. Or do you quietly meditate until your time has come? Accept it. Your soul has chosen a lifetime. And you could say, what the fuck were you thinking? Accepting a lifetime that you were imprisoned for your whole entire lifetime. How does that make any sense? The simple fact is you did want this for yourself. So you have to accept that. When you accept it, then that's when you're only going to be truly at peace with yourself. That's only when you're going to be truly happy with anything in your life. And that's where your true power comes from, is acceptance of who and what you are at this moment. And when you do that, there is nothing can penetrate the light that creates. Nothing. That's what he told me.
That's super good. I think that nails it on what a seraphim angel represents, because I've seen, it is written. So the seraphim angel is assigned. I don't even know if you want to call it a sign. Like, I don't even know what that means in the universe.
Yeah, he's still there. He's basically saying not assigned, chosen.
Yeah.
He chose to help. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like that better. And there's something about the power of the purpose, or it is written, and the fate. Because I've seen that about seraphim angels are strong in the processing, or the manifestation of, or the guidance of the exact time and place, the divine time. And something about the seraphim angel and the divine time and the fate and it is written concept, I see them associated with that. And that's a strong and powerful energy, because when you feel that energy in your own life, it honestly is comforting. Yeah. It's like you don't have to argue with where you are, why you're in this place, and why do you not know what to do, because you actually are in exactly the right place at the right time, and it just is meant to feel this way.
And they're going to be like, you said, the reality is this is what you wanted, and this is what you got. Suck it up and accept it, because if you don't,
Yeah, if
You're
you
going to
can't.
suffer. And that's
Yes.
what they're like. And some people might take that as being judgmental. It's not. It's actually factual.
Yeah.
They are very factual.
Mm-hmm.
They will stick to the facts, and this is the facts of your
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean they're not loving.
Mm-hmm. One thing I feel inspired to say, if you've ever had a time in your life where you just don't know what the emotion is to be able to exist in this moment in your life, you have no emotional or mental process of digesting the event that you're in or the situation, then you just simply, you're like stuck in this like event of you can't even cope with your existence. What you should do is feel the truth of the Seraphim angel and know that this is your purpose to be in this moment. So accept your fate in this moment is going to give you the emotion that you need to work through it with power and grounded stance and love for yourself and love for everybody else involved. And let the Seraphim angel help you with this.
There's one thing that he wants me to say about the situation with the monk.
Yeah.
That when the monk gave the sword up willingly, and the general cut his head off, the general's soul shattered.
Yes. Yeah.
Not the monks.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, this is important. And that's really weird looking, cool looking.
It is cool. A little ice world above our heads.
I think it's time.
Okay.
2023.
2030.
2030. Yeah.
So 2030 is kind of like this date that you hear World Economic Forum. You hear other things associated with this date of 2030, that there's all these sort of like goals and plans being implemented, and we got to get this stuff done by 2030. And I was curious, what is this date represent? Why 2030? What is so important about this chosen date and time? And I already had a look into 2030, and what they had presented to me was there's a clash between, and I wanted to go into this more deeply because it was quite brief, that there was a clash between the old ways, which were kind of represented as a cog, and the cog was like jammed. It wasn't turning. And the old ways aren't necessarily about old technology, but our relationship with our self, our world, it's not just about the technology. It's about, it's so much more goes into it. But the other side was, this was quite interesting. The frequency patterns that create technology that we would associate, like cell phone or Wi-Fi or laptop, we call that technology. And so the frequency patterns associated with that technology were actually being woven into our dense reality. They were creating real fabric. It wasn't a metal. I mean, I'm talking about real tangible. That frequency was actually building real tangible materials. It wasn't stone. It wasn't like metal. It wasn't glass. It wasn't any material that we've ever touched with our own hands, but it was building real societal structure. Technology, actually woven from the frequency, was coming into density, was creating a path, was creating society, was creating buildings, was a material. And so this material of technology was clashing with the material of the ages, the earth materials, and they were clashing with one another. And 2030 was associated with the clashing of time, the old and the new ways, or the futuristic ways and the old ways. But then also 2030 was associated with ideas and thoughts. It wasn't about working with one's hands, but working with one's mind. And what's interesting is all right, I was being shown this about, so we create Wi-Fi, we create 5G, all right, for instance. What is the frequency of Wi-Fi and 5G in conjunction with what is the frequency emitted from a tree? All right, so a tree has a timeline that it grows in. A human has a timeline. Like, we get pregnant, there's 9 months in there, the baby's born, they learn to walk between these times, they learn to speak. And, there's this timeline of how a human being ages. There's a timeline of how a tree grows. And this is associated with sort of like the root of time, the alchemy of time that we are given here in the rule book of our planetary energies. This is Earth nature, okay? This is our nature timeline. And then if we can't embrace our nature time, our time in relation to nature and the nature of time, you guys understand what I'm talking about. If we are trying to distort the nature of time, we are associating ourselves with a frequency that is that we are digesting outside of the nature of time. So if we are in 2030 choosing to evolve into an unnatural time, what is the branch of that tree? What is our path here? So we have the old nature of time, and we have the new technological time, or the new association with time, which you could say is faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. How many people want to sit through, I don't know, an hour-long video versus a 1-minute message, 100 1-minute messages, or something like crazy like this? It's more interesting to get more and more and more and more and more and more and more information than to feel like you're slowly receiving that information. And so we're getting distorted with the nature of time. And so 2030 is this clash between the old and the new relationship with a physical versus our ideas. And so that's what I was shown originally. But I'm going to go back into it because I want to understand it more. I want to see what more I could present about it, okay? Okay. So my guides are like, how is going into 2030, this date, this kind of peculiar, curious date, how is going into this time associated with the time that we're in right now, just to kind of out of curiosity look at it and interpret it, how is that going to relate to our conversation? Like, how are we going to empower the conversation we're having, as far as how do people empower themselves to be their authentic self, their authentic energy, their authentic, I guess, natural time, I guess you could say. But and so they're kind of getting me vibrationally, and I guess you could say psychologically, aligned with the purpose of going into 2030 and the information that I want to gather from this journey to empower people in the present. And so the empowerment goal is what empowers people in the present, based upon this information of the future, and then circulating it back to the present to empower people of the present. And I guess that's the best I can define it. Okay, let's see. Okay, I see people in the present talking about the future. And I see a man who's very elongated, and his face is very, it's like 2 feet long, and it's skinny, actually. It's only like maybe, let's say 6 inches wide at best. It just seems very elongated. It's kind of like, a hot tamale shape, like it's an oval shape. It's just like an elongated oval. And that's his head. And his head's kind of like a white and really off blue color. This is his skin. And he doesn't even look necessarily human. He has just like a little slit for eyes, but his eyes seem to be quite larger behind how his eyes can actually open. His eyelids actually open, not very wide. They say small, but his eyes are actually quite bigger behind these slits. And his nose is more flat. And he kind of stands like... he is wise, and he is a leader, and he wears kind of a general's outfit. And it's kind of silly, like the pants, let's say there's black boots that go to the knees, and then the pants are really wide out the sides, and then and they're white, okay? And so they have these kind of odd pants that represent his like military outfit, and this coat with these like achievements and a pin that he wears on his sort of like white suit coat of his sort of military general's uniform. Again, he looks alien. He doesn't look human at all. But the way that he speaks is so influential. I mean, I feel like I want to hear every word that he has to say, and he's planting seeds of greatness. He's planting seeds of prosperity. He's planting seeds. But the thing is he speaks to a complete air. He is just speaking air with sound. There's literally nothing that he is providing other than air and sound. So what are the listeners receiving from this man? He's a hypnotist. He is a hypnotist. And you would know that he had hypnotized many people. Because all he's doing is, it's literally just air and sound. So why is this air and sound, which is words, which is incredible speeches, which is passion, which is seems to be coming from it, this heart and this visionary and this man full of ideas, and but he isn't. He is. Where does he? I'm just watching this and I'm astonished, and because I feel that there are very good communicators that literally are just giving you air and sound. But what is it that they're giving you? Because you have decided that they've given you something. You've received something out of this, even though they gave you nothing but air and sound. What is that saying? But this is what they're presenting to me about our present day and then 2030. There are lots of communications that are just as valuable as basically air and sound and have nothing else to do but that. And yet we're building upon air and sound in order to believe that something important is 2030 is something important, when really it is built and based upon air and sound. So what is curious about 2030, if it is built upon air and sound, it's just nothing. There's nothing but what you want to believe there is. So I'm wanting to go into the listeners. I want to go into the listeners and I want to see where they're pulling their inspirations. Like they really value the speaker. They really their eyes start to glisten and glitter and they look at the speaker and they're like, oh, like they're really in awe, whoa, I'm on cloud 9 over this. So how is this working? This hypnotist is reaching them somehow. Is he even aware that he is doing this? Okay, I'm watching the people in the audience. I'm trying to understand. The reason what he is doing, he is giving them the idea that they are valuable. And he is planting the seed as though that their value, it's because they are valuable that this is going to have promise. Because it can't ever have promise unless he has valuable people. And you are so valuable. You are so precious to this purpose, and this purpose will not become anything without you. And he is speaking their language. He's speaking their language because he is speaking the language of you are special. This, like we were talking about, because the eagle will say, yes, I am special. I'm one of the most special. Of course I am the special one. Of course, that's true. And now we've decided on this date and given this date power. And now I, the special person, must make sure that this dream happens. And it can only happen if I am participant in it. It's literally like a cult leader. It's like a hypnotist, one who's good with words, but the words are really just made out of air and sound. And so who are the types of people who are listening to this? And then there are people who want to feel like they are special and have the ability to decide that they are unique, they are one of a kind, they are special, they are the most special. They're the most special people on the planet. They're the most special people on the planet, and that's why they are here. That's why they're listening to this special general. That is why they were given the ticket. They were given the divine purpose. They were given the calling. Because if you didn't have it, this is kind of make me think about the elites and the people with money. Like they were born into this money because they were given God's grace to be these leaders, to follow through with this 2030 plan. And that it's very it's a heavenly idea. It's a heavenly concept. It's the idea that let's say you're Egyptian Pharaoh and you were born into this state of privilege because you were chosen, and since you were chosen, you were born a God incarnate. And so as a God incarnate, now you get to choose what your will is with these servants of the God incarnate, which is you. It's a total egotistical, it's an insanity to think that way. But my guides say, well, is it an insanity to think that way? Let me give it my honest opinion. Let me just see. Maybe it's not an insanity to think that way. Let me see. I feel vibrationally that there is no getting to know oneself as being a whole self, only as being a special self. And one who is a special self then gets to rule the lives of others who are not special. And so the idea that you are above and they are beneath you is, I feel, an insanity of thinking. Because, but then what my guys are saying, but what is the insanity though? Is it the one who thinks that they are above everybody else, or the ones who choose to serve this one? Who's really insane here, the servants or the master? I say, well, I think, okay, well, let me give us my honest opinion here. Let me see. Maybe we're all insane. No, my guys are saying no. It's not that. It's we have to be born into a new strength of communication, of adaptation. It's like a new strength in our relationships. And I'm shown that there's these, what is like the elites, which is like the richest people on the planet. They're in the clouds. And they're so in the clouds, and we're allowing them to be so in the clouds. But then the conversation of, well, if you have wealth, then you can literally buy the next idea. You can buy the next bandwagon. You can buy out people. You can buy out the media. You can brainwash and psychologically abuse everybody because you have the money to purchase society. You have the money to purchase society and the experience of society. So is it money is like the root of all evil, or how it influences the human mind, how it influences the human value, how it influences human beings to feel like they are slaves or they are above slavery? Is it money then? And 2030 is teaching us these ideas. And what we are going through right now is that adaptation and that self-discovery process. And what is the Seraphim angel telling us about fate? Because we are in the right place at the right time. So is it wrong for them to think they are above us and us to think that we are not slaves to this, but yet we continue to act as though we are? And what do we do? Because so many people are living their life and their own ideas. Again, where I saw 2030 was about ideas versus the old ways with one's hand and one's whole body. Like, the old ways were about the whole body and the whole body's connection with nature and the natural time of things, the natural way of things. And we are distorting the natural way of things. And so naturally, we are going to grow awkwardly through an unnatural state or relationship with time because we are wanting that for some reason. Which means we are not wanting to be true to ourselves. We are not wanting to be ourselves. We are wanting to be unlike ourselves as a collective. And continue to be, I guess, in exactly the place where we are meant to be. So do we feel defeated or hopeless? Do we feel angry? What do we do with our anger? What do we do with our emotions? But could we be in that moment in time where we just trust that we are guided in this fate experience? Is it all written? Guess it gives you a lot to think about, huh?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things I was thinking about.
What were you thinking?
Well, one of the things that, like, acceptance of what your situation isn't necessarily not doing anything, right, or not try to change things. It's by accepting who and what you are right now gives you the ability to see clearly about what it is that you're meant to do next. By not accepting it, it clouds your mind, so everything's always in a haze. You have to accept your situation or you will not see clearly. So that's part of it. So when you're, it's like you got the leaders of the world, and I'm looking, you're looking at them. There's one thing that's interesting is that how would a spirit world be able to separate in a very conclusive way souls, understanding of souls, worldwide is by simply bombarding everybody on Earth at the same time with technology that everybody can communicate all over the world. Everybody sees what's happening, at least in most places, not all. How would you be able to rate their souls, their ability? So when you get some people that are in acceptance, or you could say brainwashed by this thing, are going to be going in this direction. And the people that hear these messages and don't accept it because they want to basically, they want to, they're kind of like me and you, they want to go in their own direction. They can want people to work together, but people aren't willing to work together, or they're working together in the enslavement direction. Because that's why there's a lot of leaders in the world want to enslave the human race, and there's other people that don't want to. What's the best way to separate those souls? Is to put them in situations where they're manipulated to the point where, are they going to go this way, or are they going to not? And maybe the ones that don't are going to be separated from the ones that do not. That's the easy way of doing the separation, is that the souls that will listen to the manipulation will move this way, and the ones that don't will move this way. And that's the easiest way to separate souls, is to put them through a living hell to see how they would react.
Yeah.
In which direction will they move in?
Yeah.
And what is accepted and what is not. So, I don't know. Maybe the world is going to separate. I know I've heard a lot about this. It's going to move in two different directions. What's the best way of doing it?
Yeah.
When you have a dark energy that is manipulative and you accept the manipulation and become part of that manipulation, then you might be removed and go into the direction of that dark energy. Yeah. And the ones that don't move in another direction. We can only hope.
Yeah.
That's something that will happen, but if it doesn't, then we're still stuck living and accepting our fate.
I will say one thing. I was just thinking about this morning. It's the idea of what is God, okay? So let's say there are different gods, let's just say, that are influencing or have like a higher perspective than we would be able to reach. So if you are being guided by, let's say, God, or let's say now we are being guided by gods, what type of God would you want to associate with? You know, you say the Bible would say that we were born in the likeness and image of God, right? So you would want to be guided by the God who would deeply understand and deeply guide you from a place of true light and love. It would be love you enough to be honest with you, even if you couldn't cope with the honesty, even challenge you to understand your insecurities, your weaknesses. You could even hate God for that, but you could be thankful for that. Now, let's say there's another God that could give you whatever you wanted materialistically. Is that a God that you would want to worship? Is that a God you would want to follow because they gave you everything you wanted? Or were you just insecure enough to think that that was important? That was the most important thing, and that's the only thing that ever mattered. So let's say in the next life you are still on the lesson, on a learning, a process of learning about which God you are choosing. The God that is, a manipulative God that gives you what you think you want, versus a God who challenges you to become your best self. And perhaps this division of people that are being guided towards, a God from hell versus a God of true light, which is difficult, which is going to cause you to have very difficult experiences of growth, but cause you to be wise and genuine and true. And that would decide the next fate for your soul, or your next soul timeline. I don't know, maybe we're at a crossroads here on Earth right now. And
in some ways, I kind of hope we are, because I would like to be able to see and live in a world of peace.
Yeah.
Instead of a world that is full of people that are hateful, vengeful, think of themselves. At the same time, we do come back here to try to bring as many of those people back
home to the yeah.
So but the worst part about it is when you die and you become back to source, you could say, and you speak with your higher self, or you become part of your higher self, and your understanding is so much more vast. And then you're thrown back into this earth because you realize that it's important to bring as many people back to that understanding as possible.
Yeah.
But then you wake up in a baby again and you go, oh, for Christ's sake, I'd do this again. And then you forget all of it, everything that you've been told, except for the things that you needed to go through in this lifetime. It is difficult to understand the vastness of our understanding of who we truly are when we're here.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to be in acceptance of what it is that you're doing right now, because that is what you're supposed to be doing. And if you're not in acceptance of that, then you're not truly living your life. And you're not allowing yourself to grow. Because accepting of what your situation is, no matter how hard and how beautiful that is, you're not being honoring of what you came here to do.
Right.
And that's hard.
And sometimes people will think that, they're out of balance, or because their life is so difficult, there's something they're screwing up, there's something that they're doing wrong. But sometimes you actually are meant to become powerful through your difficulties. Nobody wanted to be born into challenge. Not a single person on the planet wants to struggle. Nobody wants to struggle. And nobody wants to be, oh, great, this is another difficult lifetime, because you start to realize how hard this lifetime is as you get older and nothing seems to change or get easier. It's just always hard. So you must be screwing something up. Maybe you're not doing something right. But embrace these challenges, because you should love yourself so much more for every difficult thing that you conquered, because you're an incredible person. You're a courageous person. And instead of complaining about how bad it is, actually say, wow, I'm the incredible soul that went through this bad life.
We've been, all of us have been there. Like in the point where it was like, what the fuck was I thinking? Because it is a hard life or an easy life, depending on what you're born here and come here to do.
Yeah.
But the people that go through a hard life are the ones that are really, really learning in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And sometimes people that have an easy life is because their last lifetime was their living hell.
Yeah.
And they need a good life, an easy life in order to heal.
Yeah.
Remember that. Because we're not just here once. Like everybody, that saying, it drives me nuts when I hear that, because we only live once. No, we don't. That's the problem. I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
If you visit my website at AmonRossAwakening.com and Yukon Skies and Joseph Braley Roars. They're my 3 websites. And
you can find me at AbbeyNormalsWisdomQuest.com.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks
Bye.
for watching.